Welcome to the Hunting Beast Report, a live video podcast with Dan Infalt and host Jeremy Gillespie.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Stealth Outdoors. The off-season's a great time to rehab your gear, so head on over to Stealth Outdoors at www.stealthoutdoors.com to pick up some climbing stick wraps, cam buckle covers, platform cable wraps, or stealth strip rolls for all of your miscellaneous silencing needs. Today's show is also made possible by Hunting Beast Gear, innovators in mobile hunting gear and the designers of the Beast Sticks and Beast Stand. Check out the latest products at www.huntingbeastgear.com. And now, on to the podcast. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're live. We got the usual suspects here, Dan Infalt, Ashley Covert, and then today we got special guests, Matt Tingstad and Eli Talsma. How you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, real good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So I talked to Dan, and he said you guys had a pretty unique story. It's happened last spring, I believe, but it was pretty entertaining and pretty informative, too. So I wanted to have you guys on and talk about what happened and what you learned. So before we do that, Matt, why don't we start with you? Just go ahead and give us a brief introduction of who you are, where you're at.
Okay, so Matt Tingstad. We're here today in my law office here, Iron County District Attorney. I've known Dan here. I've been to his seminars, and I've been watching him for years and years. Pretty avid whitetailer, and I enjoy the show. I enjoy the information, and I'm got the piggy bank ready to go buy one of his stands here pretty quick. So hunt the UP, we hunt Wisconsin, I hunt Iowa and Ohio, and yeah, thanks for having us on.
Nice to have you.
In Iron County, that's Wisconsin, just correct?
Yep. The Wisconsin one.
And then Eli, how about you?
Hey, my name's Eli Talsma. I was born and raised up here in Wakefield, Michigan, right across the border from where we are right now. I hunt pretty much anywhere in the UP and northern Wisconsin, looking to get down south hunting here soon. Matt and I actually just were at Dan's seminar this past spring, and that's where we ended up talking to him about this idea and kind of brainstorming some different things we could talk about on here. And just like Matt said, I think pretty soon here we're both going to be rocking some beast hunting stands in the trees this fall, hopefully.
Yeah, so I'm going to pull up the screen here and kind of set this up, and then we'll have you guys talk through it. But let's see here. I think I got the right one. Yeah. Okay. So I'll read the first part of the article, and then you guys can take over from there. But the article says an 8-year-old Wisconsin boy who went missing for 2 days while camping in Michigan with his family was found Monday afternoon by a search party. Mass rescue teams from Michigan and Wisconsin scoured the Porcupine Mountain Wilderness State Park, a 60,000-acre forested park known as the Porkies, searching for I'm not sure if I'm going to say his name right, but Nante Niemi, who had joined the annual family camping trip for the first time. His mother, Jessica Berger, told the local media. So, Matt, why don't you start out? And that's kind of what happened, but talk about how you got involved and how you first found out about what was going on here.
So Nante and my daughter are buddies. Saturday night, May 5th, my wife she called me and she said, Nante's missing. He's been gone all day Saturday. This time of year up here, the Porkies, usually you can ride snowmobile into May up in the Porkies and high country. So it was cold. It was rainy. Nante was out there. I told her, I said, well, 5 a.m. tomorrow, I'll pack my backpack full of grub and we'll head out there. So 5 a.m. we go out there. The deal with the Porkies is, I don't know if you have a map of it, but the Porkies is just 60,000 acres of, it's actually the biggest virgin hardwood forest left in North America. And it's massive hills, big changes and stuff. And where he's at there, he was right down camping, right on the shore of Lake Superior. Interesting enough, I don't believe you can camp there that time of year, but they were in there. But you can see my track from day one there, and way down what would be, I guess, south on the map there. You can see kind of where we started out there, and we waited. Yep, right in there.
Yeah.
So where the red is down there, that's where Nante's tracks last were. And if you look way to the lake shore there, that's where they are camping. Yep, right there is where they're camping.
Oh, hold on.
So,
Tell us about like what happened when you got there. Who, how you decided where to search, and
okay.
Was there a search party there? Did you meet the police or any of that?
So I'm in law enforcement, but that day I didn't want to see any law enforcement. So I did was I bribed the lady. So the only way into that area is through South Boundary Road, which is actually closed. So the lady that was guarding South Boundary Trail, I gave her all my sandwiches and 2 bananas to get past her. And I was able to sneak all the way up. And I got stuck in the snow with my Toyota right there where the thing is. There was still snow there. And there was one other guy there, Leander Somero. And Leander's basically a lifetime rescue guy too that doesn't really follow the plan of anybody else. And the good Lord put us together. And we knew where we needed to go, but we needed to narrow down the area, right, Dan? I mean, we needed to narrow down the area where he was and make sure where he wasn't, okay? So that's why you see on that map on the rightmost side, that loop there is just to make sure the little guy didn't sneak out of that area, right? We're going big and we're working down small on that.
Can we back up just a second one more time?
Yeah.
And do you know the story of how he got lost or how he became missing?
Eli will tell you that.
So it's probably been a while since I've said this story, so if I forget anything, but I'm pretty sure they're at their cabin way up north, where Tinger said, and they went down to the river and they're fishing or doing something of that sort down by the river, and then Nante, he got bored or wanted to go back to the cabin or something, so there was a kind of like a little, like, not very broken in hiking trail that you could take back to their cabin, and he started walking down that trail to get back to the cabin, and then he, obviously being young and that, kind of veered off the trail and just kept walking and walking, and then eventually he was like, I definitely should have reached the camp by now, and then that's when he panicked, and so he was pretty much just walking back to the camp and veered off trail and never got back to the camp. So
what happened with the parents? They kept fishing or whatever, and eventually they go back to the cabin and find he's not there? Or?
Well, because Nante went back, and then I'm pretty sure he was with his 2 uncles right down there.
Yeah.
And then so Nante went back, then they were down by the river making firewood, and they went back to the cabin and they expected Nante to be there. And because I'm pretty sure they went back kind of shortly after he did. And then they're like, where's Nante? And he wasn't there. So then I think the 4 of them went, and they obviously started looking quickly. And I think they looked for quite a few hours just all around by the camp and just trying to follow his boot tracks. And they pretty much knew the way that he would have drifted off the trail, because apparently it was kind of like easy to miss the trail where you had to turn right and Nante kept going straight or turn left. So they kind of figured that they knew where that was. And so they started looking around their cabin and that, and then they started veering off further and further, and then they started to get nervous and that, and then started to, I'm pretty sure the uncle went back to the cabin, then walked out to his truck, and then drove, because out there in the Porcupine Mountains, there's 0 cell phone service, and especially where their cabin was, they had hiked probably, 2 miles from South Boundary up to
2 hours.
Yeah, it's a long hike. So then one of them went back and hiked all the way down to South Boundary Road and drove as far into town, which is probably another 20 miles, just to call close family and friends to go out there to help them look and say that Nante's
That must have been nighttime by then?
Yeah, it was, because I'm pretty sure he went missing around noon.
Yeah, Saturday right at dark.
Right at darkish, kind of.
Yeah.
So this was all at night. So yeah, like
these campsites are all hike or pack in only. Then there's no road access.
Yeah, it's all those little white trails going up there. That's all just single track hiking.
Okay.
There's no roads or nothing up there.
So they had to hike out from this general area,
Yeah, they had to hike
south all the way to this boundary road.
All the way down to Pinkerton, which is like right left of your cursor right now.
Yeah.
And then I'd imagine that's where they parked. And then you have to drive from there. It would be west on South Boundary all the way down You get to the Presque Isle, then you head south, and you don't really get service until you get almost all the way back down into Wakefield.
Yeah, you're an hour, half-hour drive to get service.
Yeah, so
What
Wakefield.
were the
yeah,
temperatures that night?
They were down mid-40s.
Yeah, mid-40s,
Yeah.
50, somewhere around there.
It was t-shirt weather for you, Dan. Everybody else had to wear like long sleeves and hoodies, probably winter hats too.
I don't know. I saw him shivering this spring, but we won't say that.
You was
It was pretty cold.
When did they decide to call search and rescue the uncles? Was it that same night?
Saturday, probably about an hour before it was dark.
Okay.
So search and rescue and Michigan State Police, Gilgibit County, they all showed up out there. I would believe Saturday right at dark, which would be Saturday about 5 o'clock. They set up their command center. And shortly after there's when I found out.
Yeah.
So this is last spring. Did they have anything like drones or dogs or any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So day one, the Michigan State Police had their drug dogs out there. And when you're been by yourself for 16 hours walking, you see 2 German shepherds running through the woods and 2 state police guys yelling at their dogs. You don't want to like let them know you're there. So you just stand like a tree there. I stood there and those dogs went right past me. Troopers walked right past me. I waited till they're gone. I said, "Hey," I said, "you're going the wrong way. He's over there." And they, the dogs are no good. 0% success rate on dogs out there.
Why do you think that is?
That's because those dogs aren't trained to go look for kids. They're not looking for
Drug dogs.
people. They're
Right.
drug dogs.
Right.
And
Yeah,
those
you have to have
handlers,
a dog trained to track people to find.
you need to find the guy with the blue tick in his backyard. He'll be the one to find him.
Yeah,
You're not gonna find him in
honestly.
a German Shepherd. They did have drones there, but the drones couldn't even get close enough to where he was because it was such a far fly off the blacktop.
And I know we'll cover this probably later in the podcast and that, but after Nante was found and we were carrying him out, I did ask him, "Did you see any drones or planes in that?" And he said that that Sunday or that day that we found him and the previous day, he saw several different drones fly over him and a bunch of airplanes and that. He'd stand up and start waving his arms and yelling at them, and he said they'd just keep going.
Yeah, the Coast Guard came there and they did their helicopter flyovers and stuff, but the problem with that is they have a 20-minute search area and then they fly an hour to go get fuel and come back an hour. So it was a short. So the searches with helicopters has a 0% success rate. Dogs are 0%. Kids like this are found. People like this are found by the people on the ground walking. It's the only way they're found.
Yeah, and for people that have never been there, I've been to the Porcupine Mountains. Growing up in Michigan, been to the UP quite a bit. That's a mature forest with a lot of canopy, right? And it's mostly evergreen.
And then luckily, if you pulled up that map again, but I'm pretty sure where Nante was more of the flat country, like is that red mark where we found him?
Yeah, I think so.
That luckily that country right there, that's not quite the steep, rugged, up down snowmobiling out west hills. That's the more flat stuff. But like if you would have went a little bit more to the east or even south, that's like really rugged terrain, like straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down, right in there where your cursor is right now.
Yeah, it looks pretty rugged there on the topo lines.
Yeah.
And that south boundary line from all through that was still snow covered, feet of snow on that still. So it was still spring, like still winter conditions. But down low it was just melting off.
Yeah, it was early spring. Everything was still squishy, kind of wet.
So
a little bit of snow here and there.
When you guys did this first loop, you did a big loop trying to cut tracks, right? And then talk about, because you did end up finding some tracks that you reported the first day, correct?
Okay. Yes. So I did that first. Leander Sommer and I on Sunday did that first loop, and we basically went from, we knew he wasn't where we parked. We knew he wasn't to the west of there because the Little Carp River was raging. If he hit that river, he would have ended up in Lake Superior. So we basically just cut a line to get him to know where he was. And once we narrowed it down to where he was, and you can see my wanderings there in the middle there.
Sure.
At that point, then you're just basically looking for any kind of signs of tracks or anything. But that 17-mile loop that day, I cut his tracks 2 times, once by the lake by his camp. Yeah, that's a little carp there. And then I cut his tracks. It was 2 hours before dark, and I was walking out, and I was completely exhausted, and there was like one patch of snow as big as like 3 deer beds, one big patch of snow. And I just looked down, and you could see where he like hopped and played through there, like to make his tracks be seen. And the snow was melting all day. So that I could see his tracks there. And I said, those are Nante's. And then you could see how he was just walking. It wasn't somebody just walking through. It was just little boot tracks.
Middle of the forest, nowhere's near a road. It's a child track, and there's no adult track with it.
Right. And after that long, I think there might be a picture somewhere on that link, but yeah, you're looking at it, you're like, well, that has to be it. That's it. But what happened was at that point, Nante was heading, because you can never walk through the forest in a straight line. Because it's just a very small area to walk straight. You're always left or right. And lots of people, they loop. They always do loops. And he was doing a loop, and there was a huge ash swamp in there. And he was on the south side of it, going to the west. And I came from the north, and I went to the west. And it was just basically like, it's a really nice spot to deer hunt.
Yeah.
Because there was a creek bottom and a super nice funnel on the edge of the swamp. Nante bumped that swamp. He walked that swamp down. I bumped it. I walked it down. And then there was that one dead tree. All those trees came down.
Yeah.
And it was like a perfect little funnel where he had to walk, and I just naturally walked the same way. And that's where I cut his track. It was like the good Lord had made all these obstacles so that because how you can cut a track in 17 miles of that huge thing. And I cut his track right there. And then at that point, cutting his track, it was 2 hours till dark, and I was 2 hours to get back to the truck. So, you can just record. All you can do is record his coordinates and get out to the truck and let
Did you yell for him, or what did you do at the moment? You just yell a little and try to catch attention, or?
No. At the moment I stood there, I took pictures of it. I looked at it. I said, I got to get out of here. Dan, yeah, good question, because I figured those tracks at that point, that was Sunday night. I figured those were Saturday afternoon tracks.
Because the way the temperature and the way
melted out. Melted out.
They just looked old.
Yeah, and they're melted out old. At that point, where I found his tracks, I think I was 305 yards from where he was camped that night. In that forest, I don't think you would have heard him.
No, probably not.
And the closest I came to him on the way out was 100 and some yards.
Yeah.
And
so at this point, at the end of day one, you're talking this 8-year-old boy was out there 24 hours with no food, no water, wandering probably in a panic.
Yeah. Yep.
In total.
Yep, exactly.
It's hard to say if he's in a panic, because I think kids that age, they're not thinking about the things that we would think about. They're not thinking about the fact that there's wolves or bears, which we didn't cut any wolf tracks. We cut one set of bear tracks. We saw like 3 buck rubs in the first day. Yeah. But they're not thinking about the negatives that we do. They're not thinking about.
I don't know. I was lost when I was 14. I guess that's a little older than 8, but I got lost pretty good. Spent the whole night in the wilderness, and man, I was in sheer panic. The only thing that kept me together was that I had 2 younger kids with me, and I didn't want to scare them. That's the only thing that kept me together. But I was terrified. I think now if I got lost, I'd be a lot better than if I was 8, personally.
Well,
now you're talking now.
The interesting part of when Nante was lost, I remember when I first found him, he really had no concept on time, which I think kind of almost kept him a little bit calmer throughout it too. Because when he was lost, he's like, "Have I been gone for 2 weeks, or was it only a day or two?" Or, he was kind of disorientated in that way too, which might have kept him a little bit calmer. And then when you're that young, you don't really think of all the negatives. He was probably just more like, I gotta find the camp, get back to my uncles, and that he wasn't thinking about how serious the situation was.
But we could also say that his personality is developed to spend the night in the woods by himself.
Yeah.
You take any other kid out of his class or out of the school or out of the state, put him there, Dan is absolutely correct. That kid's going to panic beyond belief.
Yeah. I think out of anyone to get lost in that age group out of Hurley to have the best chance of being found, it was probably going to be him.
Yeah.
Just with his
He's raised
family's background and how much he's spent out in the woods with his brothers and uncles and cousins and all that. Because this wasn't the first time he was up there. He's been up there his whole life, and he's going back up there again in that. And
he's prepared.
yeah, he knew what he was doing for the most part. I doubt he's ever gone through any overnight survival training, but he did say he's seen YouTube videos and stuff before on it. But how close of attention do you pay to that?
Right.
So if you found those tracks, at that point, what do you do?
Okay, found the tracks. I say I'm going back. I'm heading out as fast as I can get. I'm going to call my wife. I'm going to have the deputy sheriff meet me at my car. I'm going to bring those coordinates down to a command center, and they can get their night shift in there. They can walk to my Onyx point, and they'll be there within 2.5 hours too. And they can spend the night with their flashlights, with their drones, and they got this kid tonight. Like this kid's found tonight.
Should have been, yeah.
I did exactly that. It was, I think at 8:30, I hit the parking lot. I was down command center. I said, here's his tracks. Here's his coordinates. And they brushed me out of there like I didn't even exist. They said, yep. All right, thanks. We'll put it in here. And they're like, you're free to leave now. They were, I mean, I think they were, yeah, the federal officer was pretty upset that I had been there all day by myself searching. And the most important part of this, Dan, is something that you taught us is, can we go back to the map?
Sure.
Okay. So now if you go back to the parking lot where would be on the bottom right of the screen there, the first, when we started going on that westerly Morse loop, we're heading north. The first 45 minutes of the Leanders and I hike on that first day. So it'd be the other line, the easternmost line. We walk that, and you have to start the search like you're ending the search. Yeah, right in there. So the entire search for Nante, the organized search for Nante, would have been on the east side of that line.
Yep.
Like everybody, 99% of the people were 100%. Is that 99% were 100% concerned?
Yeah.
Convinced that he was up in there.
Yeah.
That was snow cover. And I had walked that line. And what I tried to explain to everybody is when I walked that line going north there, we did not cut Nante's tracks. If we had cut Nante's tracks, he'd be to the right side of that line. He didn't cut them. And if he would have came by after us, somebody would have saw him, because that was the main point. I mean, there were people going in there like they were going camping for a week and a half. There was just people walking. That first little area was like Woodstock full of people just hanging out there. But the whole argument was that he was to the right side of that line. He was the east side. I said, nope, he's to the left side. And at the first 45 minutes of that whole 17-hour hike, if we weren't 100% paying attention, going slow, we could have been convinced that he was where they were saying he was. And you know what? Nobody would have found Nante, and it would have been 4 days, and he wouldn't have survived. So that had to be where the first step you take, you're 100% committed to looking at every single step, like you finish it. You can't just rush out in the woods like I want to do, but Leander kept me back, and he kept wasting time to get me to slow down. And that's what it came down to. It came down to the first 45 minutes of 50 hours of searching.
Yeah, and even if you look at the topography of the track to the east side of it, Matt was kind of just on the edge of where it starts to get really rugged, up and down, and big in valleys and that. And any normal person, say if you're not lost, you're not going to start walking up those big ravines and down, up and down, if you can go 100 yards to the west and walk on the flat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially if
you got to use some common sense.
Snow covered too. Sense. Yeah, you're not going to walk into deeper snow.
Yeah, and at that time of the year, those hills and ravines and that, it wasn't easy walking because the ground was all slick, and it made like that when that dirt is kind of muddy and it's slippery. So walking up them hills is 10 times harder, and there wouldn't be any. Why would anyone even want to try and do that?
And if you got snow there, and you're actively looking for tracks, I can tell you anybody who's lost who hits snow is going to try to make sure their track can be seen.
Yep.
Yep.
So if you're
And
not
that's what
finding
he-
tracks, you can go through there.
And
Yeah.
that's what he did next. Day 2, we'll get to that. We'll tell you what he did on day 2, which was really interesting.
We'll get into a lot more of that.
So you'll see we knew the first 45 minutes was the most important, and you have to start out slow in looking, because if we would have rushed through that first 45 minutes trying to get to where he was, I honestly believe that nobody would have looked where he was.
Yeah.
Well, nobody did look where he was.
No.
The only person that looked where he was Lander and I, and then that's the only place. Anytime anybody looked down there where he was, is that group.
Yeah.
Were his initial tracks from the camp going more east or north? Is that why they thought he was north of your?
I'm pretty sure his initial tracks were the start of your red line all the way up on the north. So that was where their camp was. I'm pretty sure, didn't he sneak between those 2 rivers right there, pretty much south? There's like a bunch of hiking trails in there that aren't dotted lines, just kind of old ones. So he kind of snuck down, and there was like a hiking trail. He started walking down towards the south. And then he was just south of Matt's tracks where he double tracked right there. Kind of literally right on your red line.
I think his red line's right on.
That's pretty much exactly where he walked. And then once he got to where Matt started to loop is that where you found his tracks in the snow?
Yeah, right. No, I think his tracks were more. I can pull my Onyx and see here.
But
no, his tracks would have been way up. Yeah, right where he's at now.
Yeah.
Right in there.
So he hit down
Toledo Creek
where the red line crosses Matt's tracks. That's where Matt found his tracks in the snow. And then he kind of walked probably between the red point and the red line. And then he walked all that in the first night that he was missing.
Yeah.
So
he covered some ground then. That's several miles.
Yeah, it was like 2 miles, close to 2 miles that night. And then pretty much the rest of the time, right where that red mark is, he just did big, like half-mile loops kind of in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much.
Did he say what he did the first night? What did he do? Did he sleep? Did he stay up all night? Did he walk around?
The first night, so I'd imagine that was a whole flight or flight thing, and he obviously did the flight. So he started just tucking tail and going through the woods trying to get back to the camp. So that's when he walked that 2 miles. And then that night, I'm pretty sure he went down beside a log with kind of some brush over the side of it. And he said he tried to go to sleep, but he said he was just too nervous and kind of like scared. And he said he did a lot of praying in that. And then he said he didn't sleep much the first night.
I imagine, yeah.
I think
probably cold too.
And then, so that first night he didn't sleep at all. So imagine an 8-year-old boy staying up the whole day walking out. He had to walk from South Boundary all the way up to the campsite that day. Then he was down up all day at the camp. Then he walked another 2 miles down there through not a hiking trail, pretty much just through any timber. And like Matt and Dan and I would know that even us doing that, we could go for a nap eventually.
Sure.
And so that first night, then he didn't sleep. He was still too wound up and nervous. And that next morning, he got up and started walking a little ways. And then he said he found a nice, kind of like where 2 trees fell over in some brush. And he ended up sleeping most of Saturday, or the second day that he was missing, Sunday.
Yeah,
so that's why,
wore right out.
So that's why on when Matt found his tracks, and then Sunday was kind of like one of those days where it's like, geez, we can't get any new leads because he never moved on Sunday. He said he slept pretty much from sun up to sundown, and then just stayed at that one spot for all of Sunday. And that's why nobody was finding tracks on.
Okay, so Sunday comes along, and you have given them the coordinates on Saturday, and you're probably expecting they went out there and searched for them, and you're going to go back Sunday and help, I would imagine. What do you find?
So you're one day off. So it was Sunday night, 8:00. I give them the coordinates.
Okay.
I go home. I have court Monday morning, and Monday morning I expected that they would have them, and we were in court for an hour. And I told the judge, I said, I'm leaving. He said, yep, we're done for the day. And we were back out there.
I think we met
Monday morning. We were out there at
10
o'clock.
10.
And I walked into control center. I said, "You guys, who's looking for him?" And he goes, "It's none of your business." I said, "Well, who went to these coordinates?" He goes, "Nobody." And I said, "All right, me and 12 guys are going to go to those coordinates right now. And we're going to find them." And they said, "You're not going anywhere up there." I walked out of the control center, turned around. I walked back in. Instead of going to the right where all the bigwigs were hanging out looking at the big map, I walked back in down. I went to the left. And a guy says, "What's your name?" And I said, "My name's Matt." He says, "Who are you searching for?" I said, "Iron County." He goes, "Who's going with you?" I said, "Jake and Leander." And he goes, "All right, you guys are free to go." And then I walked back out and we drove in there and we jumped out of the truck and we ran across the road because it looked like, remember Rambo when there was just cars up and down the road? It looked like a Rambo where there was just DNR and state police and everybody up and down the road. So we literally had to park on the side of the road, jump in the woods before someone stopped us because we were forbidden from going in there any other spot besides where they're searching.
Yeah. And they originally, and where Matt kind of said that we were going to go was that map where Tinger's his eastmost track. Everyone was even more to the east in that rugged terrain. That's where they had all the search parties of everybody searching, wasn't there? So yeah, Matt was kind of just like, okay, fine, whatever, we'll go in there. Yeah, to the east, his eastmost track, even more.
Everybody else is east of this.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where they all were.
Yeah, nonstop. And I had a buddy spend all day Sunday night on a side-by-side. He put his tracks back on a side-by-side, and he ran every single road in the snow that night from 9 o'clock at night to the next morning, the night after I gave him the coordinates, looking for Nante. And he said there was nobody searching. When it was an hour before dark, it was a ghost town out there. Everybody just left.
Yeah.
There was more people at the days in, searchers at the days in, than they were looking for Nante.
So let's clarify this once. So you went in and you talked to these guys running the search, and you had told them where you found the track. Now you come back
Again,
the next day.
That's in here, right? Roughly.
Yep, correct. Correct, Jeremy.
Ask them if anybody searched. They say nobody's searching that area. We don't believe he's in that area. And you say, okay, I'm going to search that area. And they tell you can't go on public land and search for him in an area they're not going to search, where you found the tracks.
Correct.
Correct?
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
They said, "You're wasting your time. He's not in there."
Yep.
Not only wasting your time, don't go in there, basically.
Yep.
You're
I ran
forbidden
into the
from
same
going in
thing
there.
in a search I did. That's why it's kind of irritating.
Well, I mean, what rationale did they have when you said you found? Because the footprints were small, I'm assuming, right?
I think the rationale were that, well, I don't know. I can't answer that, Jeremy. All I know is
Was
that
there any headbutting because you're a district attorney and they're feeling like you're in a different county, kind of headbutting with powers?
Well,
no, at that point I was just basically showing up as like.
So they didn't know who you were?
because there was
Right.
every county around here
Yeah.
was up there.
Yeah,
pretty
it
much.
was no. I just walk in and say he's right here, and it was against what they had thought. And sometimes people get that way where they're so concerned, they're looking at one thing exactly. He's over there.
Mhm.
That they don't even listen to any other ideas. And we've done that before. Like, that buck's living over there. I'm gonna go kill him. And you're like, the neighbor's seeing him in his field. He's like, no, he ain't over there. He's over there. I mean, they're just so set on it that they could not. And once one person takes charge, everybody else is like, no one's into it. I mean, they're in there looking for a body. They were basically looking for a body. When's
Yeah.
his body show up? I want to go
Yeah.
back to my station. Like, it was.
They probably
went
figured
from
he's
a
8 years old. He
search-
didn't survive the night. Is
Yeah.
probably what they're figuring.
Well, and here's what I learned, Dan and Jeremy, about this is that everybody wants to quantify the negatives. He's in the river. The wolves got him. There's no way he survived the night.
Yeah, he's in Lake Superior.
Qualify the positives. Like, he
Yeah.
walked in there yesterday. He had food. He has boots. He has a hat. Like,
Yeah,
where's the positive? Don't be paralyzed by fear on this.
yeah.
Have some faith that he's there, and just
Right?
have some faith he's there.
It turned into a search and rescue. It turned into a search and recover probably a lot sooner than it should have.
Yeah.
They started looking for a body before they should have.
Well, that's why the dive team was there.
Yeah, there was probably almost more interest in Lake Superior and the rivers than there was probably out actually looking for him.
In the river that they sent the dive team to, you could wade across it and you wouldn't even be knee deep. Like he's not going to skid out to Lake Superior by like stumbling across the rocks. Like it was a little tiny creek.
And all of it,
Toledo Creek, if you know that one, it's not even knee deep. They're looking for a dive team out there.
And all of his family in that, they all were saying too, because I'm dating it'd be his cousin, so I'm really close with all of their family in that, and they all were telling me in that they're like, I don't know why they're looking in the rivers and the lakes so much. They're like, there's no way Nante purposely like tried to cross a river, or they said the only way he'd be in that river is if he fell in an accident, and they said the odds of that are slim to none. They said there was no way he would be in one of them. He was a lot smarter than that.
Let's get back to day 2 of your search, which is day 3, correct?
Yep.
Day 3 has been missing.
Yep.
Day 2, I'm pretty worn out. I called my buddy Jake Allen and his dad. Eli showed up, and like 12 of my buddies just showed up out there. We drive up the road. We park usually where we go snowmobiling from, and I said, you guys, we're gonna go up there. We're gonna jump out of the truck. We're getting in the woods. If you go back to the map there now,
sure.
The first day was 17 miles. The second day, these guys that came with me, they had to walk 2 miles. So if you go to the red,
it'd be
red where the camera is, where the camera point, And now if you run it straight, almost to the bottom of the screen, you'll run into the south boundary road there.
Sure.
No, go straight down. Right there. Basically, even closer, but basically we parked on south boundary. We went right to the Little Carp River, and there was like a massive veneer maple.
Yep, just
laying on that. And if it was south boundary, it was a complete straight line out to find them, 1 mile exactly, and 1 mile back. So these guys, we got across a Little Carp, and that time we're all like trading our lunches and stuff like for the day.
Yeah.
Would you have? It was a good spirits. Like we knew that day, Monday, which would have been day 3, we knew he was coming out of there alive. We just knew it because we were ready for whatever.
We all had that, because I remember it was Sunday night, and I knew Nante was missing on Saturday, but I heard that absolutely no public was allowed to go up there and look for him because they had the dogs in there or whatever. And part of me just wanted to go up there and start looking, but I'm like, well, I want to go with somebody in case something bad did happen. So then Saturday night goes by, never found him. Then Sunday comes, and I think my mom ended up telling me that Matt was out there looking for him. So instantly I called him, and he was and we devised a plan kind of, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to call a bunch of other people. And then I remember the one thing Matt said to me, he was like, do you know what Nante's favorite food is? And I was like, why? And he's like, well, when we find him tomorrow, you're going to want to give him that food right away. So that's just kind of like the mentality we had when we were going in there to figure out what Nante's favorite snack was so he could eat it when we found him.
So on the second day of your search, which the third day has been missing, did you go directly back to your coordinates where you had cut those tracks?
We were heading straight there, but we started cutting his loops. We started cutting his loops basically right when he got across the Little Carp. We started cutting his loops in fresher and fresher tracks.
It's like right in here then.
Yeah, we went 13 wide, and we just started walking and calling his name and stuff.
So then we went 13 wide, and so the way the line was orientated, it was Jason Rutzela, Axton Rutzela, Colin Gothier, and who was the other one with them?
That Levi Hupp.
Oh, Levi Hupp. They were on the eastmost side. So like you see our camera mark where it says state to the right of it, pretty much. Yeah. That's kind of where they were. And then it was like me, Matt, Jake, Allen, all of them to the west. And we all got to like this kind of just like a little muddy creek. And we ended up seeing Nante's tracks. So we were our group was kind of sitting there devising like, oh yeah, these are definitely him. He definitely crossed right here, went up this. You can see where his boot slid. But then Jason, Axton, Colin, and all them were probably 200 yards to the east. And they found his same tracks, because we caught him coming straight towards us, and then he looped in front of us, and they caught like the more fresher tracks. So we were all sitting there we're deciding, and we're like, hey, come over here, we have tracks. And then they were yelling, hey, we got tracks, but we couldn't really hear them. So then we kind of just sat there and we started back following his tracks up then. And then we're like, well, geez, where is everybody? How come they're not coming over to us? And it turns out that Jason, Axton, and Colin, and Levi and all them were over there. They found those tracks. And I believe Levi was the older one that was with him, right? When they found them tracks, Levi just started yelling like, Nante, Nante. And then they all heard like a really high pitch screaming. And they're all like, that was definitely a person. So they ended up pretty much, they all just took off sprinting. Because if you're looking for a person and you hear like a young kid scream at the top of his lungs,
yeah, you're getting pretty warm.
Yeah, you're burning almost.
Yeah,
right. So they all start running and yelling, and I kind of started veering off towards them. And I remember I was eating beef jerky, and I hear them all screaming. Then I hear "We found them! We found them!" And I was like, I just like looked around, and I kept hearing it, and then I looked at Matt, and I was like, "Do you hear that?" And everybody in our group that was talking stopped talking, and then one of them yelled, "We found them!" as loud as they could, and then everybody just started sprinting over there towards them.
Yeah. So here's a picture of you with Nante on your back.
Yeah, that was shortly after we found them. And who had that pack? Wasn't it?
It was Jake's dad.
Yeah, Jake's dad. He had an old pack like that. And Nante at first was trying to act tough and that, like he wasn't tired or nothing. But I knew him good enough from school and that, and I could tell he wasn't quite his normal self. So I was like, "Let me see that backpack." And he ended up sitting on that, and we carried him out of there.
Eli carried him for what, 15 feet there, and they gave somebody else.
Yeah,
got enough pictures.
Just took a photo and then put him down and said, "Hurry up, start walking."
So at that point, how long was he out there?
Yeah.
48 or 49 and a half hours, roughly.
Yeah, so Saturday.
From start to when he was gone to when we set contact.
Yeah.
Did he have other clothes on? He's wearing like a t-shirt. It looks like
that's all.
here.
No, he had a
hoodie.
He had a white hoodie on, and he had a hat, but I think he lost it or something. I don't know.
So at that point, you got to be kind of wondering about what's going to happen when you get back, when you search for in an area where you weren't supposed to be.
Well, that was kind of our big ordeal. So when we found him, it was kind of weird because it was like the dads and then the kids. So like Axton, Colin, and I, we were kind of more like the kids in the group, the younger ones, and we were all just like right around Nante. And then all the older guys, they were back there talking and that. And then we kind of ended up going over by them, and we were like taking photos with them and that. Then I don't remember who it was, but they're like, "Should we call the police and tell them we have them?" But then Matt had a good idea, and I'll let you say what you thought on that.
So the young guys were celebrating, and all the dads were basically like one knee on the ground, just, thanking the Lord. But we had one guy with us, and I won't mention his name, but he was DNR for life. And he said, "Well, if you bring him out to his mom, if you bring him out to the cops, he's going right to the ambulance."
Yeah.
He said, "Sneak him out right to his mom." That was tough.
Yeah, we kind of, because I remember we all kind of pull up our phones and we're like, "So who do we call? When do we do it?" And then then Matt said that. So that,
because we went and scouted. We went to try to find mom first. Remember,
we
peeled out
so we all walked out to, what was that, the little cart that we crossed? We all
to the Veneer Maple Crossing.
Yeah. So then I handed Nante off to Jason Rutzela, and he carried him out the rest. But then Matt and I, because Matt knows his mom really well, and I knew her. And our goal, we heard she was in a parking lot close to where Nante was. So Matt and I, we kind of were just like, we're going to go find her, throw her in the car, kind of kidnap her, and be like, "Just come with us right now." So then she could be like the first one to like hug and just have like their moment alone without all the police and ambulance and everybody wanting to do that. But then, so we get to that parking lot and there was like nobody there. And that was to the east.
That's up on top of the hill.
Yeah. So we went to the east from where we were. There was nobody there. So then we drove back to the west and we met everybody crossing. So
we hit him back at the truck.
yeah, we hit him like perfect timing right back at the truck. And then we're like, well, she must be in the main headquarters, which is at the Presque Isle campground, more towards the west. That's where they had their big cop bus and that, where Tinger pretty much blew it up. And so it was Jason Rutzela, Axton Rutzela, Colin Gothier, me, Nante, and I can't remember who else was in the front seat of the truck.
Maybe Ricky.
Probably Ricky. Yeah, it was. But so we threw him in his truck and we started driving him. And it was kind of like surreal because he was sitting right here and we were driving past all these like big lines of people searching in the woods and all these cops directing. And then there was like cops on the road, like kind of looking at us with their chests puffed up. And I'm like, just keep going, run them over. So then we drive past all them. And there was Jaws was right there at the corner of the Presque Isle. And we're good friends with him. And I'm like, roll down the window, Jason. And he rolls down that back window and I lean back and I'm like, look at this. And then he stuck his head out. I rolled up the window and we kept driving then right off to the campground. And like the way it was set up, it was kind of like the main road. Well, if you pull up the map, I think it'd be easier to
Sure.
Yeah, run the south boundary back to the west.
Yeah.
To Presque Isle.
Yeah, just keep running it.
Yeah, you're going right way.
Yep. So then now zoom up a little bit where the roads intersect there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then down, wasn't it down a little bit more?
Yeah.
If you zoom in,
so
towards the lake.
Go towards the lake. Yeah, right in there. Command center was right in there on your right somewhere. Probably where that. Yeah, right in there was command center.
Yeah, right to the left of your thing a little bit more. That little clearing.
Sure.
Yeah, they had a huge.
Right there.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like the main road. And then it was like one of those turnaround outhouse parking spots, right? And the way everyone was set up, the big DNR State Patrol cop bus was right in that parking lot. And there was a bunch of tents with food for the searchers and a bunch of cars in that. So Jason, we were kind of pulling in there and Jason's like, well, do I stop right here? And I don't remember who said it or whatever, but I was like, no, go right down in there. So he turns down into, and I mean, there was cop cars, people like everywhere. Like
there was hundreds of
people standing there. And he just starts pulling in his truck and just honking the horn, just like kind of like nudging through everybody. And like all these cops started looking at us like, all like, what is this guy doing? What is this guy doing? And then I remember Colin Gothier was sitting on the right passenger side of the back seat of the truck. It was Nante, and then it was me. And then I'm like, Jason pulled down into the parking lot, parked right front and center. I'm like, it's showtime, Nante. And then Colin kind of like opened the door, kicked it open, hopped out, put his arms up, and I kind of like pushed Nante out of the truck and was kind of like holding him up. And everybody just went erupt. They were like,
because we had mom right there.
Yeah, and then the mom, you were in front of us, weren't you?
Yeah, Jerry, I just kind of disappeared, but Jerry had Jessica right there.
Yeah, and I was like, pushed him out there.
It was pandemonium.
He stood crazy. Up. Everyone went crazy. The mom went.
How'd he get here? How'd he get here? Who's in charge of this?
Yeah, all the cops just beat red in the face, just like.
It was right to fists almost. Like Jerry pulled me off. It was almost a fist at that point.
It got really emotional and heated and tense pretty quick.
The pizza was cold.
They got pretty ticked off at you guys for actually finding the kid, right?
Yeah.
I think it was the one thing we did wrong, Dan, is if we would have been prepared, we would have had Nante in the back of the truck with a Trump 2024 flag on his shoulders, and he rolled out. He could have jumped out in that Trump 2024.
Yeah.
We went there. We got him. We brought him back. He saw his mom. He got his pizza. He was in the ambulance. And the guy in charge of it, or who quasi in charge of it, was furious that we went and searched where we weren't supposed to search.
Yep.
That's how blind they were, Dan, to where that kid was. They were so blind that they were mad at us.
And well, just to put into perspective how kind of upset they were, I think. So we went up there and parked, and we literally parked the trucks, grabbed our bags, and sprinted across the road. You know, like when you're going into like a hunting spot and you're kind of 50-50 if you're supposed to be in there or not, kind of deal. And
we
don't know, but I'm sure Dan does. But anyway, so it was kind of one of them. We just parked the trucks, sprinted in there so nobody could see us. And I'd imagine like cops and that were driving up and down that road, and they ended up seeing our car, all of our trucks and stuff parked there. And I think someone ended up saying that the police were like, what was it? Like if they're going to be,
all right, tickets for
they're going to be coming out with handcuffs or something. As soon as they're out of there, they're coming out in handcuffs. Like they're going to seriously book us. But then I told Matt later on, once I heard that, I'm like, we weren't leaving until we found the kid.
Yeah.
We were going to stay there all night into the next day, however long it took till we found him, or somebody did.
He's in there, right?
If they arrested a district attorney for finding a district attorney of a county, it doesn't have to be theirs, for finding this kid and the media got a hold of that, they'd be ruined. So they couldn't do something about it. All they could do is puff their chests at you.
Right.
Yeah.
And all we needed to do was say, okay, he's with mom. He's safe. All right, let's get our Caesar's pizza. Let's get our Dairy Queen fries.
Which is cold.
And we're done. We're out of here.
Yeah.
That's all we can do.
Crazy.
Yeah, I did.
And I'll just make it aware. Raise awareness that we got to find these people.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have these responsibility. We have these talents. We need to find these people.
Yeah.
I got
and not to backtrack or anything, but we kind of did bounce over what he was saying on the way out about like how he survived kind of out there, I guess you could say, which was kind of like one of the bigger things that blew up about it, how that 8-year-old kind of knew about all that. Like when I was carrying him out, what he was saying to me and the questions I was asking him. So I think, we probably should have went over that. Eh?
Yeah, go ahead. What, how did he survive and what did he tell you?
Well, okay. So we did all that, the ceremony, don't call the cops, whatever you want to say. Right. And then he got on my back and everyone was kind of walking out. I can't believe we found him and all that. And I kind of veered off away, kind of like behind everybody. And so I could just kind of talk to him because I knew Nante pretty good because he went to Hurley High School here in Iron County. And I went to the same school. And at that time I was a senior and he was second grade. And the hour before my lunch, I kind of had like a monitor, kind of like mentor, like younger kids. And I'd go and always mess with him because I knew him kind of. So I'd always be with him messing around in that. So he kind of knew me as like a familiar face. So he was comfortable because I'd always see him at like family dinners and that too. So he started talking to me and he just like completely opened up about everything. And I remember some of the questions I was asking him was like, I was like, so Nante, did you ever eat or drink anything? And I'll say because I can remember it clear as day in my head of what he'd say. And like to that question, he was like, no, I didn't want to eat or drink any of the water because I knew that there was bacteria in it and it could get me really sick. So he said when he was walking though, he'd find fresh snow and just kind of put it in his mouth. And when he
pretty
started
surprising
saying
that aware at that young of an age.
Yeah, like to know like there's bacteria in that, not just I don't know. And that's what he said about, and he said that about food too. He's like, I saw not berries, but I saw like some stuff that looks like I could have ate it, but he's like, I never even thought about it because I knew I could have got sick. And then that's kind of when I kind of went into, did you sleep at all? Did you do any of that? And that's when he was like, Saturday night, I didn't sleep, whatever. And then he said, I got so tired walking Sunday that I ended up just sleeping the entire day. And that's what led into that no finding fresh tracks on Sunday or Monday.
Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, Sunday. And
Sunday afternoon, you must have laid all those tracks we found them on.
Yeah.
Sunday evening.
Yeah, no, it was that morning though.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then, so then I was like, Nante, did you ever hear any dogs or airplanes or drones? And he said almost, because he had no like reference on time when he was out there, but he said pretty much it would have been soon as the DNR got there and they started flying those drones and airplanes across that. He said that he saw several airplanes and drones. He said,
helicopter.
yeah, and helicopters. He said some of the drones were right over the top of the tree, right above him.
Huh.
And he said he even got out of his little shelter and would wave his hands and yell at the drones and that. But he said by the time he got out, they were already way gone and that.
Mm-hmm.
And
didn't he say he was looking at the helicopter pilot, looking at him?
yeah, I'm pretty sure he said the helicopter pilot had a green jacket on or something. I remember him saying that to me. He knew the color of the jacket the helicopter driver was wearing, but the helicopter driver never saw him.
Well, he thought the helicopter pilot came over him, and then he's like, the helicopter flew away, and he's like, oh, he wants me to follow him. That's why he was walking that way.
Oh yeah.
So that's interesting how he was thinking.
What were you guys' big takeaways, like, for people that are watching this, or like Ashley has as a young son too? What do you think
The big
how could the people prevent this, or what should they be teaching their kids, or what were the big lessons here for you guys?
I'll start out as from a searcher standpoint. After this was done, there's a lot of negativity about it, but 2 different county sheriffs called me. Sheriff in Aaron County said, Matt, what do we need to do to improve our search and rescue? And Baraga County, Michigan sheriff called me, says, what do we need to do? And I said, you're going to have searchers, you're going to have volunteers, you're going to have people searching everywhere. What you need is 5 to 10 guys that you have their cell phone, and you just call them up and you say, hey, here's what we got. 5 to 10 guys that you rely on that can just go rover through. And there's guys that are listening tonight, and guys on Dad's Forum, and guys that know that they can be those rovers that are ready to go at any time and will make the success rate that much higher. Call your county sheriff, call your buddy who's a deputy, and say, hey, here's my phone number. When it comes down, let me know. And that's the way Baraga County, he goes, if a sheriff gets this kind of publicity where they have helicopters flying over, 0 success rates, MSP dogs there and stuff, that's not what you need. You need the guys that go out there and say, all right, let's be sensible. Let's make a big loop. Let's narrow it down. Let's get right to where he was, and let's find him. But yeah, I mean, with the kids and stuff, just get them out there and let them know that the woods are safe. Like the woods are safe. It's scary. It's dark, but like, your older brother or sisters told you that the little things will come grab your Achilles tendon that night and just drag you down into the mud.
Yeah.
That doesn't, I mean, I've been going there forever, and I used to run the woods with no flashlight forever, 12 years old out there running it. You're safe. Everything's going to run away from you. Let your kids know that you're safe. Let kids know that as soon as they're gone, if they are gone, someone's going to look for them. And just fear paralyzes, and the faith, propels you. It propels you to do good things. Have faith it's going to work out. It's such an enjoyable place to be. You can't have fear out there. You just have to know. Give them a compass, throw them a compass and say, okay, and my dad used to say, hey, we're going that way. Look where the sun is. Look at your compass. When you want to come out, which way do you go? Oh, you read it the wrong way, and you put your shoulder on this, your sun on this shoulder. Keep the sun there. If it's cloudy out, just keep track of where the wind's coming from, all that stuff, and just get back out. But kids have to know that. Don't fear it. Understand it. And it's a great place to be. I mean, he was back in school the next week. Like the next week, he was back in school. Yeah. Let's go back to this Monday. I think he was in school Tuesday. Wednesday, he went to school.
I think it was Tuesday I went there. I went back to school and that,
yeah.
But yeah, like the big part of that is, I mean, not everybody has like family members that are big into like the outdoors, like dads that hunt and that. But luckily, Matt and I, we both had fathers that hunted, and I know like my dad, when I would be following him when I was young in the woods, it's not almost like a sit-down classroom. When you get lost in the woods, this is what you do. It's more of like when you're walking out in the woods with your dad and you bend down to like a little creek because you're thirsty, and then he's like, don't drink that because you're going to get sick. You just kind of slowly learn on and on about that. Or you grab a berry that looks like a blueberry, and he's like, I probably wouldn't eat that blueberry because you don't know it's a blueberry.
Because he ate it before.
Yeah, because he probably ate it before and he knows what happens. But I think a lot of that is just kids getting the opportunity to go out into the woods and learning that. And I feel that kids, okay, so like Nante or any other normal second, third grader, you sit them down in a classroom and tell them, okay, today we're going to learn what you do when you get lost in the woods. When they're sitting in a classroom with all their buddies and that, how well do you think they're going to pay attention and actually retain that information? You know what I mean?
Sure.
I feel like the more you can get kids like one-on-one or even just like little groups of them, like in school, going out in the woods and being like, okay, so kind of making like little scenarios and like little challenges for them, like go and make a shelter is in an hour or whatever, and then teach them the right way to make a shelter and be like, so if you want to find water, what do you do? Where do you drink it? And if you're hungry, what should you look for? What type of berries can you eat? What berries can't you eat? Kind of do more fun activities in that way, so kids kind of get more involved with it. And then I don't know, that's just how it always seemed that I learned the best. Like when I was having fun learning, it's always like one of those things that like stick in the back of your head, you know.
For me, I would think that the basics would be more important, because if you're lost long enough, you have to survive on berries, you're in trouble. But if you know which way west is, you know which way a direction is, so you can go in a straight line. If you can teach somebody that, if you
how to use compasses and all sorts of stuff.
Not to run, not to take off, not to keep walking, and if you find a trail, just to sit tight or follow a trail, not wander through the woods. But teaching the basics, I think, would be more important. Back about 6-7 years ago, I went to work one day, and on my way to work, I heard a news thing on the radio saying that an autistic kid had run off and was missing, and they named the father, which is a good friend of mine and a coworker. So I got to work, and I basically just shut the shop down and told everybody, let's go. And we went out there to help search. And I went to his house, and they had a search party. They had the police and all that kind of stuff. It was almost deja vu listening to you talk, because when I first got there, I wasn't accosted by these guys or whatever. And I talked to the father, Brian Umkum is his name. And I told Brian, I said, you can look at this terrain. This is a nonverbal, about 11-year-old autistic kid. He runs from people. He got out and he took off running. I said, not far from his house was a very fast, deep river. And I'm like, he's going to be headed for that because it's open terrain, it's downhill, it's through woods. And he's like, he kind of went the other way. I said, he's going to turn, he's going to go that way. I said, you can look at this terrain, you know where he's going to be. He's going to be right down there. It's more open woods. He's not going to run through this thick stuff. And they took the search party. They made everybody go in a line. They went through all this stupid thick stuff, and they couldn't find him. They wouldn't let anybody look down there. And they brought out a dog that was trained to track people. They put it on the scent. It ran right into that thick stuff, turned left, like I said, ran right down to the river and found him sitting by the river. But they wouldn't let me look there. And it's the same thing. I mean, certain people have a skill, but I understand it because 99% of the people that show up there have no skill. Putting them in a line, walking through stuff is good. But knowing who has skill and who can read the terrain and look at things like that and know is different. I mean, I don't know what it is, but guys like me and guys like you, Matt, I know you pretty well. We can look at a terrain. I might not even be able to tell you exactly why, but I know how somebody or something is going to travel through it. Just like I knew that if somebody went across that snow, you didn't have to look that careful for tracks because they're going to make sure they leave a track. I mean, you get a common sense for how that stuff goes.
Yeah, and when I'm coming out, I'm walking to snow patch to check out the snow patches because that's where you're going to get the easiest tracks.
Yep.
The DNR had the federal officer had a group of walkers off the south boundary. They had probably 30 guys, volunteers in a line walking down the side of the road and across a little cart.
Yeah. No. And
miles from where we were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And when we drove in there on Monday, they were walking that line, looking at the ground. We had Nante. We were out of there. Our lunches were gone. We drank all our Coca-Cola and everything.
Yep.
And they were still walking that line, and they moved in like 2 hours. They had moved, 100 yards?
Yeah. And you could see all 30 people
Yeah.
from the road in their high-vis vests and everything.
But they got to put people somewhere. They're volunteering. But like you said, there's people with skills, and they have to, the organizations, these law enforcement has to say, okay, you're my qualified people, Dan. If you volunteer, like if you're on a list and say, hey, Sheriff, you call me when it happens, I'm going to be there. I'm going to find this kid. So if that kid was in the river and gone, we lose somebody. Eli had a situation where probably one of Eli's biggest basketball fans was lost and not recovered alive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that was horrible. That was horrible. That was up here in the UP, and that was before this, and it never should have happened like that. It was the same thing. I know the guy that lives, his neighbor, and I know the woodsman guy that would have found him that day, but he was refused. He was told, get out of your property, get out of that ditch. You can't look over there. Jed Platsky.
Yep.
Jed would have found that kid that day.
Yeah.
They yelled, get out of here.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that went on with that one.
Yeah.
But you get that certain group, like the Dirty Dozen or those certain guys who
that Dan works with, those guys.
Yeah, like people like us that are in the woods 3-4 nights a week, walking around looking for deer, knowing different terrain features, how different animals and things are going to move. How like when we're just walking through the woods, you see like a brush patch, and then you look to the right, and the brush keeps going up the valley or whatever, and then you look to the left, and it's open. Obviously, you're going to turn to the left and go around it that way.
Yep.
Like if you could just have like 5 or 6 people, even if like so. One guy's idea, maybe have like all 5 of those guys go in there by themselves kind of and have their own plan. So then they can all kind of sort of coordinate and think about their own ways. Cause maybe one guy thinks he went this way and one guy went this way. Well, that doesn't mean either guy's wrong, but then you have both those good ideas just to split it up and have or people who know what they're doing to find those kids quicker than what the walking in a straight line, 30 people wide, 100 yards long, and only moving 5 yards every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I had some first responder training that was specific towards finding lost people, and it was probably the training these police are getting, because it was line up people every 10 feet so that they can see each other plainly, almost holding hands. You cover swatches, and then you have to mark where everybody checked, so you're not over checking the same spots. And then they grid search different areas, and it is a time-consuming thing that takes a lot of organization of somebody, several people monitoring areas, like in groups. Because, like you said, if somebody local is missing, some kid, thousands of people are going to show up.
Yep.
And there was a big part of that was do not jeopardize the crime scene. The kid or the person is most likely going to be found dead. You don't want to, have people wandering nilly, or they're going to disturb evidence and all kinds of crazy stuff, where really the focus shouldn't be on not disturbing a crime scene. It should be on finding this person as soon as possible to have as least likelihood that that person's going to die.
Yeah, because I feel like when you start grid searching like that, okay, if you can narrow down where he is into like 1 square mile and you have 1,000 people grid search it, obviously you're going to find him eventually. But in like Nante's case, when there was thousands of miles of timber to cover, grid searching wasn't, maybe they would have found him eventually with the grid searches. But I mean, we were getting into 48, 49 hours of that 8-year-old boy, no food or water. Eventually, thank God for Tinger and I and the Dirty Dozen to kind of just break away from the rules and kind of do our own thing to speed up the recovery. Because if it was just the grid searchers, but probably by the time
they weren't searching down there.
They had no plan to search down there anytime soon. And if Nante would have stayed in that one area, who knows when they would have found him.
Didn't imagine how I would have felt if I was 100 yards from him that he ended up missing out there and never found it.
Yeah.
you don't sleep after that.
Pretty incredible story, and it's amazing you guys did what you did, and you're able to find them. But Ashley, do we have any questions? So we usually take questions from the audience, and you're muted, Ashley, so you're gonna have to enable and yeah. But we'll see if we had any questions. But yeah, thanks to you guys. Jeez, that's it is an incredible story.
Well, we had the good Lord with us too. It just worked out. I mean, you don't just have this all to come together, and I'm not more talented than anybody, but I have good friends, and the good Lord just gave us the power to get out there and the energy too, just to make it. But you have to be healthy too. You have to be ready to go at all times.
There's a lot more to it about knowing that land. I mean, you guys know the Porcupines, you guys know the area, the landscape. You've been in that type of terrain your whole lives, and you've lived in it. Where all these guys coming to search haven't. And they're just going to go look at land. They don't understand that the terrain is going to be different here than there, and how a person's going to travel through it. And even subconsciously, you kind of know that.
Yeah, like to the east, how we knew to the east it was starting to get into up and down, and then to the west it kind of flattened out into like a plateau base and more rolly hills. When Matt sent me the point of the tracks, I instantly knew I didn't even have to have the topo lines on or anything, that was all flat terrain. And then another 200 yards to the east was where it started to go up and down. And then, like you said, Dan, guys, state troopers and that were from Madison or wherever they came from way down south, they don't know anything about that, and they don't know what that little kid, how much experience he had, or the training that they got compared to not really the training that Matt and I have gone through, but what we know.
But with these phones now, and when you have your Spartan Forge, your Onyx, there's no excuse not to have these points. There's no excuse not to have your track.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in the woods. Everybody's in the woods that's a little bit older now when you straight compass. And if I'm straight compassing out there, it takes a lot more skill. And to get back to the exact same point the next day, we would have had to walk in a different way and get down there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess that's a good point too. Every younger kid's going to have a cell phone. If you could almost now these days, just to get them to start to learn how to have like an Onyx or a Spartan to click this, and then you click this button, and then now it's even, you can turn your phone and see which way you're pointing.
Proof. Yeah. It's like, you don't have to just kind of look at the sky anymore. You just take when you're like this, you're looking around like when you're lost in the city.
It goes beyond that because
but it's still good.
A couple of years ago, I lost my phone in a cattail marsh, a mile and a half from the road. Had no idea where it was. Could not find it. I mean, you're in cattails up to your neck. I went back and called the phone company and got coordinates to exactly where that phone was. Walked through those cattails to the spot, dug through the cattails until I found the phone.
Yep.
Mile and a half back in the swamp, not even knowing where I had walked.
Yeah, so, hey, maybe after the podcast, you could give Matt and I that point. We can go look for. We could have went and helped you find that phone.
Just getting the coordinates to us.
You guys would be looking for the deer.
we'll go look in that spot.
I know you guys.
September will be out there with you.
Yeah. I think Dan's over there in that tree.
Can we hear Ashley now?
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you now.
Hey, there really weren't any questions tonight. It was just a lot of people saying that they're heroes and thanking them for saving that kiddo and just being confused as to why they wouldn't help. I know as a mom, I would absolutely lose it on somebody if they told me I couldn't have an extra group that was very certain where my child was, search for my child. Like, I would not be okay, and somebody would bleed.
Yeah, and that's how it was.
That's literally how his mom was.
The father I was talking about, Brian Uncombe, who lost his kid when the kid ran off. He wasn't allowed to search, and a big part of the reason was they were looking at him like a suspect to this kid being missing.
Oof.
No.
Oof.
Oh, I would lose it. I would absolutely.
That'd be pretty stressful, wouldn't it? If you're the parent, not only to not be able to search, but to be told that you could be a suspect in the disappearance of your child.
Yeah, and especially when they're supposed to be advocating for you, because at that point in time, a parent is a victim. Until there's proof that something happened, they're still a victim, and they need to be taken care of just as much, because that's terrifying.
No doubt the police should have that in the back of their mind that person could be a suspect in something.
Yes.
I don't bat them for
Right,
that.
right.
But I think they should
Yeah.
just keep that quiet. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
You gotta
Yeah.
find the
Find
evidence,
the
right?
kid first.
Yeah.
Find the kid first.
right.
Part
and
of my
there's-
training was my oldest son is he's on the spectrum, and he used to disappear all the time. So I was pretty good at finding, tracking him down, and just staying calm and being like, all right, let's quantify the positives, right? I mean, but like Dan said, if there's water there, get to that water. You know, these kids go to water, get to this water, and he wasn't very far off that river.
No.
Remember, he said he walked that trail by the river, then he cut back in there.
Yeah.
He hit the little carp, and then he turned around and went back.
Even part of me with that kid, that the Brian's kid, not only to look down there for him where I thought he would go, but you have all these people block the river so you can't go running into it, because this kid was not all there. I mean, he could just run into that water.
Yeah, he had right. Yeah, what's the worst danger, right? The worst danger is the water. Okay, let's cover the water. And then you are.
Yep.
But let's not assume he's drowned in Lake Superior. Let's not assume the wolves got him or the bears got him, let's not assume
Right.
that.
Sure.
Right.
But if they say you can't go there, I mean, you got to figure a way to get in there, right? I mean, at that point, that ground's public, right? Get in there.
I have to say that's pretty badass for a district attorney.
I'm running on a pose this year, so I should be all right.
Well, guys, I want to thank you again for sharing the story. And real quick before we wrap up, I want to thank all the members that tuned in. Bomad Outdoors sent a super chat. Thanks, Bomad. Zeke Outdoors, MKEMM, Matthew Wickner, Kazu River Kennel, Elizabeth Williams, LM, Brian Griggs, Joseph Bon Villain. I don't know. I hope I said that right. He's a new member. Welcome, Joseph. Mike Feaster and Wisconsin Bowhunter. If I missed you, it's just because I didn't see it. Tried to get them all though. And so Matt and Eli, I appreciate you guys coming on, sharing the story. Pretty incredible story. A lot to be taken away from there, I think, too, on all sides, from the searchers and educating your kids on how to be savvy in the woods and all that stuff. So I'll turn it over to Dan if you got anything else you want to add, Dan, before we wrap up tonight.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for coming on. I know we've been trying to get this done for about a year now. I apologize for it taking so long, because I really wanted to give you guys an opportunity to tell the story. I think that's an important story, and it was fun having you on. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. When do you just gonna ship them stands to us then? You get your sticks, I get the stand, or how does that work?
You go to the website and you buy it.
Oh, you do? Okay, yeah. We'll probably be getting royalties off this anyways.
Well, hey, if we get that Onyx point to that swamp, maybe we'll just find one of his
Yeah,
stands
I
sitting
think he's
there.
probably
Well,
Spartan Forge now.
Oh, Spartan Forge.
Yeah, we got Spartan Forge. We got the thing now.
Yeah.
The discount. So.
Well, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and we will be back next Tuesday, same time, same channel. Thanks, everyone.